Today we are together with Ashley Logsdon. Not Logsdon. Now I was afraid I said it wrong.
You did it right. You did it great.
I
It was
did it
perfect.
great. Sorry. And Ashley, you have a wonderful website called Mama Says Namaste. Why did you choose that name if we just start right there?
Okay, that's a great way to start because it really my whole business started kind of at a point where my husband and I had been married for 10 years. I'd been blogging and talking about my parenting process for a while and just sharing things as I was learning as a new mom myself. And so at this point we kind of got to this kind of epiphany point at our 10-year wedding anniversary, recognizing that it'll always remain one day until we put a date on it. Like, what are our dreams? What do we want to do with our lives? And we started to think about what our big goals were. And our big goals had to do like with things like travel. And when we started to then think about, okay, what is the feeling behind the goal? Not just traveling, but why do I want to travel? What does that feel like to me? And what are those words I want to bring forth? And we started to think about, it's that feeling of awe, and it's of being in the present moment, and it's embracing the now and finding joy in what is. And so as we started to kind of dream for our future, during this time I was working running my father's business, and he works with people who are in the career sector looking for either finding or creating the work they love. So I've been working with entrepreneurs forever. I was coaching people, and I was always the one who was at the live events. We'd be, telling people how to build their business or how to be a coach, and I'd be the one in the back of the room with the couples saying, "Okay, and if you're going to work together, here's how you can do it and actually, enjoy each
Right.
other at home as well."
Without killing
And
each other. Yeah.
exactly. And so it kind of pushed me into, everybody said, "Well, why aren't you coaching in this?" And so as I started to get to what did I want my business to be about, I was very much into yoga. It has definitely been something that has been a practice that I've done forever, and they always end, every yoga with namaste. I started looking into the meaning and the significance behind namaste. And I love the perspective of namaste really, really being so much deeper than a greeting. I think about it almost like the movie Avatar, where they say, "I see you." It's
Mhm.
that deeper connection. It's I see, I sense, I respect, I value and honor the peace and the beauty and the light that's within you, because it's also within me, and we can recognize that in each other. And that's so much the essence of what I do in my family, in my relationships coaching, is I help people to recognize and understand their own light, and then figure out how can they connect with someone else's light in a way where both are fed. And so, of course, being the Mama Says Namaste kind of stuck with it. And it was Mama Says Namaste, mainly me blogging and doing coaching. And then in 2017, I think we started the Mama Says Namaste podcast. And I did the first season all by myself. And then I got to the marriage part, and I was doing a whole series on laughter, humble pie, and lots of sex. And I thought, I can't do this without my husband. And so I brought my husband in. And so my husband Nathan has been co-hosting the podcast with me every week. We're on episode 340.
Wow.
So it's still Mama Says Namaste, but you also hear from Papa on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, we are only on episode around 65 or something, but it's
When
quite
your
a
parents die.
yeah, no, no, it's quite a blast to do it, a podcast. I think there's such a big learning journey in it. I mean, just all the people we meet and talk with, and also the fact that if you're doing hosted without guests normally podcast, then you actually need to think about what you're saying and have something kind of profound to say. So
My
you
dream was always to be like the Dear Abby type of person, where people write in questions and you can answer things like that. And my father had a podcast for 17 years, and that was his podcast, was people would ask him questions and he would answer, and it was all career related. And so I kind of followed in my father's footsteps with it. And my brother is also a big podcaster. And so yeah, it was a natural fit to go into that. And because of everything with my dad and all of the stuff I've been doing with his business, it brought a lot of content. So, not to mention the fact of just dealing with parenting. There's enough content in figuring out the
Mm.
next the next thing that we tackle as parents.
So, Ashley, talking about parenting in relationship with relationships and having a partner, being married, then how big a part of parenting is the being a couple? And the reason I'm asking, in this world where you and I and Cecilia all are, where we are more unconventional parenting, maybe through homeschooling, unschooling, then my experience is it is often the woman who comes home and say, you know what, I have an idea, let's start to homeschool. And then after some time they say, let's start to unschool. And I remember as a man being, what is this weird shit my wife comes home with and talking about? That sounds weird. The public school system was good enough for me, and you know all this. So how do you work with these things?
Oh man. First off, that's lots of great content for podcasting. So my husband and I have got several episodes where we talk about gender roles in marriage and different responsibilities in a relationship and how we both step up for parenting. So yeah, I mean, my husband came from a very traditional world of, public school. His parents both worked in government work and, retired after 39 years, and very traditional model. And so when we started going into what we were going to do with our kids, he was okay with kind of experimenting when our children were young and and kind of testing the waters a little bit. But when we look at, and really the basis of what I'm working with families is, what is your overall family vision? What do you dream of and what do you want that to be? There are some people where they have very traditional roles for the male and the female, and it may be that the woman is very much in that role of being the mother. I'm not, or being the full-time homeschooling parent, I would say. That being said, I'm not that that's the only approach or that that's the right approach. It may be right for one family. For our family, we looked at what do we want to create, and what we wanted to create and cultivate was one where both parents were actively present with our children. And we made substantial shifts to do that. We walked away from a six-figure income and my husband being a real estate agent gone all the time. And we said, what do we want for our family? And what we wanted was more of the relationships we were cultivating. And that meant he needed to step into it. And so he walked away from that and we went to RVing, and he became full-time dad. My work is remote. I can do it from anywhere. And so he jumped into that and he learned so many of the different roles. We approach our parenting very much from an angle of both of us having experienced both sides. And I do challenge couples that before you knock or get frustrated for what your partner is or isn't doing, live in their shoes, step into it and experience it. If you've never experienced what it's like to have the mental load of figuring out what food to get and what food to put on the table 3+ times a day, and we know more when we have hungry, growing children, and just the mental load of that, on top of keeping the house clean, on top of figuring out the schedule, and on top of getting our children to all of the different places they may need to be, there is a huge mental load. And you're seeing more and more kickback from mothers saying, me just giving a chore list does not take out the mental load. There is more in this, and you are all, and every man and every father coming into this, you are smart enough, you have enough of a brain yourself to be able to check off some things on what it takes to run a household, because otherwise you're simply another child in this household. And so in a relationship where two parents want to be seen in that relationship, then the expectation is they both are contributing in that relationship. And that is going to look different for different people, but it definitely means sharing the mental load of addressing all the things that it takes in running a household. And so so it kind of shifts for everybody, but I always challenge the fathers to step into the role if they want a relationship with their partner and with their children. That's part of the responsibility, is them understanding what we don't understand. We can be quick to reject, we can be quick to condemn, criticize, and judge. The more we educate ourselves, the more grace and respect we're going to have for whoever is choosing to do it.
I totally agree with you. I'm thinking two things, and one is just I've heard my husband a few times say, when he was frustrated about running fast to get all the money that we needed to buy all that food and other stuff,
Mhm.
that it looks like I'm just drinking coffee all the time. You just sit there
Yeah.
drinking coffee.
Right.
I'm at least honest and take with pride on the stupid perspective.
Under pressure.
Yeah.
I understand your pressure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it can look like that to be
It
a
can.
radical unschooling mom, because one of the big jobs is to be available, which means if I'm doing something all the time, I'm not available. So I actually have to sit there and drink coffee. I spent the first few hours every day chatting with my children, and it looks like nothing. And until you live it, until you understand what unschooling really is, it looks like nothing. It looks like weekend. It looks like vacation. And I think it's one of the challenges we have when we try to explain in the classic situation with the dads leaving in the morning, doing the normal stuff at the office, coming back with the money and being tired and looking at the family and why didn't you even do the dishes and what's going on here? So live in each other's shoes, or at least try to stretch your empathy muscle, is a very, very, very good idea for both sides. Then I would somehow, without, I'm not challenging what you're saying, but sometimes, opposites can be true at the same time.
Mm.
That one of the actually very interesting pieces of advice I got from my mother when I was young, she said, yes, it's a good thing to share. She was part of the whole women's liberation. She was burning her bra in the 70s, the whole thing. But at the same time, she said, yes, there are no blue jobs and pink jobs, and you should share. But on the other hand, it's pretty nice to just have a separation of tasks. If you've got it covered with the car because you understand it and it kind of feels nice for you to do that, I'll make sure that kids always have shoes the right size. And it's not
Right.
because I'm a woman and you're a man. It's because, that's how it works in our home. And I think,
Right.
yes, and amen to everything you said about walking each other's shoes and, stepping up, coming into the game, not asking for a chore list, because that's just annoying. I totally agree. And I also talk to a lot of women who have a number of children plus one more that they're married to, which is
Right.
really annoying. But
Right.
on the other hand, it is at the same time just very nice. We don't discuss who's doing the dishes. We know who's doing the dishes. We don't
Right.
discuss who makes sure that whatever shoes have the right size, or that the insurance of the car is being paid for, because we don't all have to have all of the load all of the time.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I say we redefine our roles in our marriage, and it's not necessarily linked to our gender. My husband happens to be a much better cook than I am. And that was hard for me to stomach because that was my role. I was going to be the cook in the family. And quite honestly, it stressed me out, made me not so great of a mom or a wife to be around anyway. And it wasn't enjoyable food. And so when we hit the road, Nathan said, I'm going to do all the cooking full time. Well, he took it over. And for 8 years, it's kind of been the kitchen is his turf. And now we're kind of doing a dance of learning a new routine where I'm doing more, and I've learned now and I'm better at it. And so it actually tastes good. I've had 8 years of apprenticing under Nathan, so I can learn about it. And so now we're kind of tag teaming, and we are having a conversation. Hey, who's going to do it tonight? But to your point, I 100% agree. It's define your roles. And it may be there is his turf and her turf, but it may not be because of your sex or your gender. It could be very much because of your skill set and your sweet spot for contributing to the family. And that's where I challenge. So it's not just equality. It's not just women have to do men's work or men have to do women's work. We're raising a family. Our goal is to do this together as a team. What's your skill set and what's mine? Who's the quarterback and who's the running back or whatever? It's easy for me to use sports analogies, which is kind of funny because I don't do sports at all.
No.
So
now
no
you're
expert
actually
sport
using a
terminology.
sports analogy to a sport that we don't even understand, being European. So
Exactly. There you go. And I see, and I don't even know the
I get
terminology
the
for
point.
no.
football. Yeah, the other football. Yeah.
The other football, the
Yeah.
one we
The
don't
right
understand. Why
football,
would you
not
kick
the
the ball with your foot when it's football? It makes no sense.
No,
Yeah.
Ashley and Cecilia, there's an interesting subject that we kind of just, in my sense, came.
What are you going to say?
Yes, thank you. What I'm saying is, I actually think that a lot of couples don't start out by taking and looking at a common vision. What is our family
Right.
goals? What is our family's vision? And if we were lucky in the sense that our life got totally changed around after Cecilia had cancer back in 2010, and that made us stop us dramatically and ask ourselves when she survived, what is it we want out of this life? If I
Right.
could go back and change something, I would have loved to ask that question together earlier in our partnership, in our life together. And it is when we got a clarity about our goals, what our values are, things just become so much easier. And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Ah, let's shout it out to the world. Go figure out your core values together as a couple.
I kind of want
Wait,
to challenge what you're just saying, just because
Please do.
my story is apparently not the same as yours.
Yeah,
I think we were pretty clear on what was important and what was not important, but we had less power. We were less,
that's the way to see
we
it. Yeah.
we knew it. I don't think anything at all changed for me value wise when I had cancer. It just got more important. And I became even more of a no bullshit kind of person. I was like, I don't have time for this. I just
right.
got time again. And now I know the value of it. I almost ran out of time. And now I'm 35 years old and I beat it. I'm going to cherish every moment. I don't have time for that anymore. I'm going straight for what's important. And I think that's what shifted
Yeah.
for us. It's not that we didn't
No,
ask
no, no.
ourselves the question. It wasn't that we didn't. So maybe if any point is going out to the world, from our experience, it is maybe you think you thought about it, but think about it again and think about how important it is to think about it on a regular basis. We have
The,
something
yeah,
going
the
on in
real
the screen.
the reality is that we can, like, when we're building a business, and again, me working in the entrepreneurial world, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and when we're building a business, sometimes we can get so focused on the content and my message and what is my mission and what is my brand and what is my niche and all of these things. And then marriage and parenting, we just react. We just react to what's thrown our way. And even if we have a good idea and a good vision of, I want a happy family, you don't you don't necessarily get intentional enough to say a happy family means that right now we need to do a family reset, and we're starting with a routine in the morning and have something where we can come together, or that we're going to have a conversation where the whole family knows what our family vision is, things like that. And so when I work with couples or families, that's my first thing is, what is your family vision? Have you ever even discussed this with your partner, like what your dream is versus what theirs? I mean, what does it look like to show up as a partner? And have you discussed this with each other? And then what does it look like to show up as a parent? What's important? Is it fostering, a deep relationship? Is it enjoying the play and the fun? What are those key words? And so when our kids were young, we sat down and we just dreamed with them. We just said, what does home look like? What words do you think encapsulate that? And then we wanted to make it easy. So then I have this conversation about doing a family vision, and then they go to the other extreme and they create a family vision that's like a page long. And it's this whole manifesto. And then I say, what's your family vision? I don't know. It's like in a file cabinet somewhere. And I'm thinking, well, that's not easy to apply. We want this short and simple, something that you can remember, something that's a mantra. My parents had one when we were kids that was a poem that inspired my mom, and she printed it out, drew it, like she drew a picture with it and stuff, and then she posted it next to the toilet, on the refrigerator door, and on the bathroom mirror. We saw it all the time, and I can still recite it to this day.
Mm.
And so for us, for our kids were, I mean, our youngest was 3 when we created our family vision together. And it's 6 words: explore, respect, listen, connect, learn, and love. And those are our 6 words. But just having that simple, intentional focus on what words we were about created so many times of, instead of a fight, instead of a you should or don't do this, it was a simple question, hey, Hen, when you stepped, my 3-year-old, hey, when you stepped on that toy, you remember what our family vision is? Explore, respect, listen, learn. Was that respecting that toy? Was that respecting our things? Oh, no, it wasn't. And all of a sudden we can have a conversation about it. And so it worked for us to, as we move forward, every reaction I could look at, okay, am I reacting? Am I moving forward in alignment with what I want to create, or am I simply reacting in a moment? And so as we can look to get more intentional with our families, we can start to cultivate and create what we want instead of simply going in reaction mode. And that's a reality all of us do. It's the reality of us as humans. We are going to just react at times. We're going to get overwhelmed because we're parents 24/7 from this day forward. Even when they leave the home, we're still parents 24/7, and we still have that opportunity, even if they have a little bit more freedom. So,
Yeah,
it
but
helps to be intentional.
I work together with Janet Atwood, wonderful woman who have created the Passion Test, which is a book and a New York Times bestseller. And she has this sentence where she says, "When in doubt, choose in favor of your passions." And I also love that. But when I look back at and trying to go into being like 33-year-old me, and we had a son that was 1.5. And if I was to look at my family vision, it would be like, oh, sleep, less stress at work, figuring out to earn enough money to run a household. That would be like, it was more survival mode. So I think with people who would have asked me that back then, I would have been like, oh, come on, shut up. I don't have time for this. I need to sleep and survive.
Well, but and even for that, then my challenge is, what's one word? What do you need? Do you need sleep? Okay, so then how am I going to continue to support allowing for sleep because I recognize the recharge? Or like my brother who had a 2-year-old and he had a 1.5-year-old and then twins born. So he had, 3 under 2. Their word was ease. That was it. So everything that they said, every commitment that they were going toward, everything that they were asked to do, they always said, okay, does this add more ease to my life or not? It doesn't have to be so big and complex, and it doesn't have to be your permanent forever, because you're right. A new father in the very beginning is you have a different agenda. You have definitely moments of pure survival. Let me just get through this and get my sanity back. You have those moments. But we have to recognize those are seasons. And so when we set goals, it's not because a goal is, or an intention with our family, it's not because that's our concrete has to be forever. It simply gives us a barometer of intention to keep moving forward. And so I always say, have grace for growth and have permission to pivot, because where we are now with the insights we get tomorrow, that may shift, and that's okay. And it's okay to do that. And we want to allow for that. And, so much of these conversations that we're talking about are, the examples that we're setting for our children as well. I want my children to know that the pressure is not on my child who's turning 17 on Sunday. The pressure is not on her to now give me the answer of who she's going to be at 54. I mean, there's a lot of pressure for young kids to have it all mapped out. And in this unschooling world, I'm letting them know I'm still an unschooler. I'm still growing, and I have grace for growth, and I have permission to pivot. And that means that I may look at where we're headed and shift things. We've just dealt with a big substantial loss in our family where everything is shifting. And so in this moment, I'm being honest, and I'm telling my kids, I don't have all the answers. I'm not saying I have our next 15 years mapped out. I don't at all. Thankfully, we've been in the traveling world. We're used to 2-week increments. We plan for 2 weeks and that's it in travel, because you can't always plan way in advance. So, we allow for flexibility in it. We set intentions so that we don't live in reaction. We don't set intentions to trap us into a prison of our words either. We always allow grace for growth.
I like that.
I think if you're looking back at your former self, and I'm seriously not trying to mock you in any way, sometimes you find me a little harsh.
Or truthful, and the truth might hurt.
You are looking back at a version of yourself who had quite the resistance to everything inner work or personal growth, or you would call that mimbo jimbo. You would be like, that's annoying, shut up.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe that guy is not in our audience.
No, hopefully not.
It's
Or
just,
maybe they're growing into it. I mean,
you
that's
can
the thing. Yeah, we're all so different from where we were 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
you can hear the part of the message that you're ready to hear. On the
Right.
last episode, we talked about philosophy, and I happened to remember that I had read this one of the books that our guest was mentioning, and he said, "What did you make of it?" And I was like, "I read that book when I was 16. It's been a while." And after we stopped the recording, I realized, oh, I actually read it because it's one of the, well, in the perspective of my mother and grandmother, it was a very good place to start learning French. So I read it in French, learning French, which means I probably didn't get a lot of philosophy out of it.
No.
We do a lot of this inner work that you also agitate for and work with, and on a regular basis stop and, is the core values, are they the same? Where are we going? Why are we going there? We're currently traveling full time still, and that, that stirs the pot on a regular basis. You kind of have to stop and think where you're going and why, and what would be the benefit of whatever choice. But I think, however, the idea of making a family vision and these things, however it arrives, just pick the parts that make sense and start from there. It doesn't have to be exactly what I say or exactly what you say. Just making that little space for having any intentional living, could be 10% better.
Yeah. And that's where we're just looking for, yeah, what's something that just nudges you or inspires you a step forward from where you want to be. And when you are creating a family, if you are looking at loving each other, then that's part of just having those, just speaking those opportunities for how to connect. And I kind of blanked on where I was going with that, but yeah, I think my Nathan says, people ripen at their own time. All fruits ripen at their own time, and it's so true. And so that's where, there's not a cookie cutter approach for one person, and there's also not a perfect method to follow or anything else. And we pick up different things at different times. To your point, I have so picked up books recently that I read ages ago and gotten a whole different message from them when I've read them now, but I'm coming at it in my 40s as opposed to in my 20s or in my teens. And it's a whole different perspective. And I have lived a different life at this point. So yeah, it's kind of meet people where they are. That was the best advice I got when I was a young mom and trying so hard to work through my daughter's tantrums. And I got a piece of advice that just says, meet her where she's at. And just that little shift of just sitting with her in the moment made all the difference versus me coming in and just trying to fix it all. So often it's not that we need some substantial overhaul of our lives. Sometimes we get them unwarranted or unwanted, like cancer, and those things happen. And we have things that are unexpected that really do jar us into getting intentional. But that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes you can have a simple conversation or hear a random podcast, and there's that one sentence that just gets to you. You just sit with it, and it may change a difference, maybe not even in your actions for that day, but it may change your awareness of what you notice and what you're observing. And that's our goal. I think that's our goal for all of us as podcasters and as people in kind of the self-help industry and in coaching and everything else. We can't change people or fix everyone. But if I can open the door to awareness, where you are a little bit more aware of your impact and how it is impacting yourself and others, that's it. That's all I can do. What you do with it from there is your prerogative. But that's my hope, is to sow some positive ripples of, here are some tools that I have used. If any of these tools are helpful for you, then props to you, and I celebrate that. And if not, that's okay. Not your cup of tea. Maybe not for right now. Maybe it will be later. Maybe not ever, because you're a different person than I am, and that's okay. But a little bit more grace and respect for one another in the process, where there's more opportunity to bring awareness versus telling and talking at each other.
I like the way of talking about it where you use the word awareness, because it sounds less judgmental than what's going on in my mind, where I often, until now, I've been thinking about it as one of my main goals is if people could take more responsibility, I would be really happy. And it can sound judgmental, but I often see that people are searching for external factors of what is wrong.
Mhm.
And it can be in their marriage, then it's always the other person's fault. It can be with their child, then it's the school system's fault or a diagnosis fault or something out there where it is not their responsibility. And when you place the responsibility another place, then are you do you then have the power to change it? And yeah, so but awareness is a good way to look at it. Absolutely, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you are the victim of your circumstances, you're turning control of your life into someone else, over to someone else. And so the more that you can bring that awareness, and Nathan and I, our podcast this last week was focused on it was inspired by somebody else's blog post, becoming minimalist. And so we shared about it on the podcast. And the blog post that Joshua Becker wrote was less of I know what I like, more of what's working for you. And we're in this environment where social media self-help has come so big,
Oh,
and
yes.
so now there's so much of these stances of this is who I am. These are my, I'm setting boundaries and I am who I am and I am free to be me and everything else. I understand that. And there are some elements of self-love and self-care that we need as humanity to step into and give more support. However, if everybody is standing on their own mountain saying this is how the way things are supposed to be, how in the heck do we work with each other? And so my question is not a judgment of it's your personal responsibility, clean up your act, but it's okay, how is that impacting you? Are you getting a positive return in here? Is your ripple effect something where it is supporting you and you're feeling affirmation and good flow in your life, or are you consistently the victim? Well, what is in your control? If we could start with what's in your control, you're probably going to be able to move out of it more than simply being mad at what you can't control. And so just simple tweaks on how we approach and what the impact is, because if we're all sitting there standing in our own stances, we're not going to be able to have anything to connect. And again, I just go back to that family team. When you're looking at soccer football, or any other sports, for the most part, when you're talking team sports, there's specific roles. Like there's one person that's the goalie, or one person that's doing whatever else. And you don't have the goalie go and do the other role. And again, that's where I'm going to get lost because I'm bad with my sports. But everybody has a different role with the ultimate goal of winning the game. Well, if my ultimate goal is winning as a family, meaning I actually enjoy coming home and being with these people, and my home is a place where I can recharge and it's not a place that I'm walking on eggshells, if that's my goal anyway, then I better recognize how my ripple effect is impacting everyone else. And my energy brings what does it bring out in my home and beyond. So the more that they can kind of see that like they have control over what the impact is, the more it can just open that door for personal responsibility.
I wanted to pick it up at there can be in this industry, as you call it, of self-help and personal development, the fixer-oler problem and the ambition problem. And I think it's an important thing. It's like, the other side that goes with it again. Yes, it's great to have clear family goals. It's very important to be able to cooperate with each other. It's this freedom that we create when we intentionally do things on purpose, not just reacting to whatever by the way happened and what triggered it pushed. It We have to do that. But there can be this overambitious fixer-all, now it has to be perfect, and I can't react this way, and I can't react that way, and I have to always be. I find that over the years, most of the time we're just in flow. Most of the time we know these things in the back of our minds, but we're just, doing our things. But then where it really is a lifesaver is if I'm clear on what's truly important, and I am in the habit of stopping and thinking what's truly important and what's truly important right now. Then when things get hard, you said you'd had a loss and things are shifting, and if it gets hard, or if you're in a weird situation, you don't know how to act, then having that escape, I'll go back to my values, think about what's truly important, and decide from there. Then it's not about this or that. Then it's about which one of these will push me the furthest in the right direction. So having a habit, what I'm trying to say is having a habit of, in any practice that will give you this safe space, this escape out of the here and now and the reactive mode, and all the pushes and pulls and triggers and things that happen in the here and now. This will save the day when it gets rough, and it will get rough. Life is not always trying out a recipe happily in the kitchen while
the rough parts are the growth opportunities in many ways, and they can be. I say that they can be, and that's my perspective, and that's the perspective I've chosen to have, is that when a struggle comes, what does this make possible? So it is what it is. When something has happened, how much time am I going to sit being mad about what's already happened and being mad about the past versus looking at, okay, where do I go from here? What does this make possible in my life? What can I learn from? Even if what I learn is I never want to do that again, I can still learn something and then move forward from that. So yeah, we are going to have our reactive moments. That's a given. So it is not that you just put on your hat of intention and you're living the saint life moving forward. No, I don't even want that, because that robs me of my growth opportunities. Because I know that when I do sit in reactive mode, there's a growth opportunity and an opportunity for some humility for me to admit to my family that, hey, I screwed up and I acted a little harsh, or I wasn't thinking, or whatever, and to be able to own that. Again, what are we showing our kids? I mean, all of these things that we're talking about, and grace for growth and flexibility and being intentional, I mean, those are things I want to offer my children to find more ease in life. Not to be the perfect person, not to never have any issues, but to recognize that they have the tools to seek the ease and the flow in their lives. And to be able to, when that flow is disrupted, to have the tools to be able to get back into it and kind of find their center again.
And there is this movement between the planning and the doing, the intention and the attention, if you want, to the present moment. So if we come from a point of knowing what we want and how we want it to be, the quality of what we're trying to create and the reasons we're doing the things we're doing, I think it would drive us crazy to think about that all the time, to have it forefront. It has to be some sort of, like, you make your to-do list in the morning and then you kind of forget about it, and the next morning you look at it and maybe you say, shoot, I forgot something important. But more often than not, you got through the three most important things. And in the same way, this should arrive at some sort of habit point where we can flow. And then, at least for me, these things become a safe space. They become the thing that saves the day when it becomes a little more complicated.
Right.
I just think that you and I are in the same business, and we can talk and talk and talk about being intentional, setting your goals, all this. And I'm married to this guy who used to have a lot of resistance, and I see where it comes from. It can sound annoying. Why don't we just have a cup of coffee and whatever, and solve the puzzle? and
I do not need fixing right now.
Sometimes we just yes. Well, I'm big on, don't schedule out your life. You cannot be so intentional that everything is boxed in. And you guys can attest to this too. When you live a life of travel, you know, the curveballs and the unknown variables are going to happen that may disrupt everything. You know,
Oh,
we
yeah.
learned to think on our feet and to recognize that sometimes we had to be really flexible, and maybe we had great intentions to go to this one place, but then the weather was wrong or the flight was wrong or whatever, and it didn't happen. And how can we pivot and find something new? So
Mhm.
all of those things, you know, happen in our lives. And so but what you said though, is you're talking about the habit. You've brought that up a few times, and that's so true, that when we're intentional, that's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to get to have intentional habits that move us forward. And so I don't say schedule your whole day, but I oftentimes do tell families bookending your day is really valuable. What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? What's the last thing you're doing at night? Are you doing things to dummy proof, you know, quote unquote, dummy proof your day, where you can make sure you do get those? You know, for a while, especially when we're doing family resets, which we've done on repeat. It's not that you do it once and then your family is perfect. Our kids are growing and learning just like we are. So we have times we're doing great and we're flowing. And then all of a sudden we have a time where we're going, oh my gosh, we're really getting frustrated with each other. And we need to do a family reset. Those are often times where then we say, all right, you know, we've got young kids, we get up in the morning, everybody's up at the same time, and we have reading hour, and we went through the Big Life Journal. They have got great things with Big Life Journal. I recommend them all the time. They just printable, you know, free printables and stuff. And so we'd sit down and we'd go through, you know, what's your high, low, what's your buffalo, what are some, you know, what is a goal you have for today? What is something you want to do for someone else? And we'd have these conversations. Well, what it did is it created a habit in our household of when they're waking up in the morning looking for, okay, how am I showing up today? And just simply having that as their first thought is, how am I going to show up today, has created some beautiful habits that are more intentional in life. Looking
Mm.
at what are our big rocks and recognizing we tackle our big rocks at the front end of the day are really valuable. And then I wanted to go back to the you just sitting and just drinking coffee, because being the working mom, as Nathan's sitting around and I'm struggling with my own resentment because he's sitting there playing the ukulele, chilling around, hanging with the kids. And I'm sitting there, you know, with my workload and all of the mental load I've carried and everything. And I'm sitting there with resentment for him. First, I think it was a book I read kind of called me out on it. And if you're feeling resentment, is it because you really are angry at what they're doing, or are you mad that you aren't able to? And that was my first checkmate, was hold on a second. Am I really mad that he's sitting and playing the ukulele? Or am I really mad that she's sitting there drinking coffee? Or am I wishing that I could sit and chill and do that? And I'm angry that I haven't given myself the space to do it. So also in our differing roles, Nathan has really helped me learn how to play and how to chill and how to rest and how to recover. And he's made it such an important part of our family, and justified it and stood by that and said, it's okay for me to sit and play ukulele. You know, I've done this, and this today, and I need to recharge. And it's important for you to do the same. And in doing that, he also is helping our children learn how to recover. Because I know, especially here, I mean, I'm speaking from my US culture, it is very much do, and what have you accomplished?
Mm.
And my personality style, I go into personality styles a lot. My personality style is do, and what have you accomplished? And it's hard for me to not just be the drill sergeant throughout the day, going through the house and going, well, what do you do? What are you doing that's productive? It is hard for me as an unschooling mama to see kids loafing around, not doing anything and all of that. So I've had to really challenge, why is that? Is that really a bad thing? And it's helped me to learn that, you know, rest and play, oh my gosh, fosters so much creativity and productivity. If I want to be more productive and more creative and more successful in the things that I'm doing, then I'm going to add that play and that recharge and that rest so that I have the bandwidth and the space to do it. So it's a beautiful balance of it. And so, yeah, I mean, going back to the roles, you know, maybe you don't step into each other's shoes entirely. Maybe you don't play each other's roles forever. Maybe there's very clearly, this is what I do and this is what you do. But have some respect for what that brings to the family and brings to the relationship. Learn about it, learn the why, and make it personal. It's that bring empathy into it. Just recognize what they may be carrying and what beauty there may be, even in the rest or the slacker or whatever you want to call it, that may be coming out. Maybe a beautiful part of what you want to cultivate in your family.
And also, really, I think as an unschooling mother, that as an unschooling person, I have to keep challenging, and it's getting way easier. You know, what is doing and what is chilling? You know, why is it not doing playing the ukulele, hanging around the kids? Why are we making this segregation between things that are elements of life that we unfold? Sometimes it looks very much to me like he's doing nothing, sitting, staring at that computer for 6 hours. And I'm like, all the kids need attention. We need to clear the house. We have to plan the next trip, you know, and I can't find this and that. And we have to fix whatever, the dishwasher. And you're just sitting there.
And playing Tetris.
Probably. But no, but what I'm saying is just, and when you look at me drinking coffee, hanging out, talking a little bit, I find that this is a core element of what I have to do to show up as an unschool mom. It looks like chilling, and it is very chillful, if that's a word. You know, I'm just hanging out, drinking coffee, chatting with my kids. I don't feel any pressure or at work or any stress or anything like that. But it's still a thing we're doing. If we're watching a movie, if we're playing a game, why do we keep making this line between production and not production? This is a mindset that is not useful, really.
No, it's not at all. And I think some of it can be cultural. And I can't, and with me not having traveled everywhere, I can't speak for every culture. But for example, one of my most favorite parenting book is The Danish Way of Parenting. I love that book, and it's got some great tools in that. But when I think of,
I could say I'd read it.
We haven't read it. No.
it's a great one.
I just, you know.
Yeah, I did it.
We'll look it up. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a book review on it, and I've given that as a gift to so many new parents too. It's a great book. And it very much encompasses a lot of the unschooling perspective and the things that I love. So I loved that book. But when I think of strictly speaking, my US culture, what I've grown up in, so often productivity or rest is distinguished by money. It's about money. And so there is this thought that anything that makes money is your productive good stuff. There's also the first question that is asked, unless you're in the Bible Belt in the US, for the most part, the first question you get asked, other than where you go to church, is, what do you do? Everybody wants to know around the money. That's a cultural thing in the US that is starting to kind of get challenged and get broken down. I mean, our younger generations are getting sick and tired of it, especially when their job roles may be changing every year or two. You know, they're constantly morphing with their jobs. And so there's more to it. You know, Nathan loves to ask guys, what do you like to do for fun? As something different versus just, what do you do? And it throws them. And a lot of guys don't know how to answer it. So I agree with you that I don't think that there needs to be this, like, my rest can be my super productivity time. I think that there's a disconnect in my culture here that says productivity means you make money. And yeah, I don't want to show that with my kids either. So we put just as much value for sitting and playing the ukulele as we do for the work that I'm doing on the computer. And we respect and give space for both of those in our home. So kind of trying to change the culture. And I also am kind of feeling like that is the culture that we're kind of living in, and that we're trying to pivot a little bit and move away from.
And funnily enough, you say productivity is making money, and then relaxation is using money. I've also seen it's a growing thing. It's like, now we're going to chill. Let's go have a this or that. Or I mean, it's just, yeah,
Yes.
it has been more eye-opening to live almost 3 months in the States, because even though I thought we were kind of alike, it's still a weird country.
We
Very
thought
different.
what it would be like, and that all the prejudices were just exaggerations and something from the movies. And it's really been, we could do an entire podcast on
Just the bigger, better, faster, more,
rising,
more parking lots.
bigger, better, faster, more. Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I
It
I
is.
just want to pull on another thread here. So we very often challenge that question, what do you do? By answering, we go for a walk after lunch,
Oh, I love that.
because
Yeah.
we do, but also because that's more important than how we make our money.
Exactly.
So that's one way of just trying to throw out the idea, could we talk about something else? And also I want to share, because I know we have a fair share of listeners who are just embarking on their unschooling journey. So they have smaller children and they're just, getting started. And I remember when my kids were smaller that I realized really cleaning up, clearing the house, if I had the time for that, that was just the greatest luxury. It wasn't a chore. I would really enjoy it if I had just 15 minutes of uninterrupted folding the laundry and washing down the counters so that things were a little more organized. It would look like a chore. It would look like doing. But to me, really, it was resting.
Right.
And I think we get these ideas about what's doing and what's resting, whereas sitting in the sofa looking at the TV, some Netflix or whatever, I couldn't sit still for that. It was just annoying and overwhelming. It was just, I couldn't have it, until my children at some point down the journey said, we would enjoy watching this movie with you, Mom. So we had all seen it afterwards. And then it actually became kind of a chore. Now I do enjoy it. It's been many years, but at some point I had to, okay, so this is something I have to do. And it looks like chilling, but to me it was not. So I think also we get it defined by this standardized idea about productivity and money and, what's efficient. And we can even, even be against cleaning up because, oh, I'm supposed to rest now and it's my husband's turn and why am I always doing this? But actually, it can look different. And I think for many people, it would be a good idea to stop and think, what do I feel I'm doing? Do I feel I'm struggling? Do I feel I'm doing something I have to do that I don't want to do? Or is this kind of nice? Am I doing it voluntarily? Does it make sense?
Oh, and I completely empathize too, because I love cleaning and I'm with you. Let me go scour a bathroom. Don't bother me. I'm going to just be in there, living in my own little world, listen to a podcast, or even just have silence and just do my cleaning. And I find it fun too. Oh man, I love that though. I think that when it comes to rest and productivity, it's similar to when you are first experiencing unschooling. We talk about deschooling. Throw out everything you think school should be and be open to how you can learn. Well, same thing here. Let's throw out what productivity and rest look like, and let's say, how are you moving forward and doing things that recharge you so you can continue to move forward? And that's going to look very different for different people. Yeah, I wish I had a kid that got as excited about cleaning as I did, but we're still working on that one.
I'm not
After
going
one,
to be
she's close.
I'm not excited about all of those chores. I'm not going to volunteer doing all of it for all of us all the time. I'm just saying we should challenge that
But there's
mindset.
different joy. Yeah, there's different things that we can enjoy, and what looks like rest to one person does not to another. And I've had to come to grips with that as well, because Nathan's level of rest is different than mine. And yeah, my rest is oftentimes still doing something. Doing a craft project is great rest for me, and I absolutely love it. And that's going to be a chore for him. So exactly like you said, I mean, what we see is where we're showing up, it's going to be different levels of effort based on your interests and who you are and where you're at in life, which will also shift, just like you can enjoy a movie now when you didn't earlier.
Yes, now it would be rest for me to watch a movie and maybe a chore to clean the kitchen. I don't know.
Ashley, we should try to round up, but as you help a lot of couples, so instead of saying what is the number one advice you have? So where is it most of them fuck up? Is there a certain area where you're like, oh, there's this commonality that a lot of them, if they just started here, if they didn't do that?
The biggest the biggest thing is simply everyone speaking from your own mountain. I think that's the biggest part. What is your goal? That is something that that Nathan told me that when we were dating. I was making some snarky comeback to something he was saying. And I always had that he called me last word Ashley. I'd always have the last word. I always had to have some kind of comeback. And I remember him stopping me, and we were in kind of a rocky spot anyway, and I was really protecting my heart. And so I was being a little bit more closed off anyway to him. And he gave a big sigh. He goes, "What's your goal?" And at that moment, I thought, well, what is my goal? To get the upper hand? Well, okay, then what? To make you feel bad? Okay, well, that doesn't really help. Or is it to love you? And if my ultimate goal is to love you, is what I'm doing right now adding to that? And so he challenged me on what is my goal. Oftentimes we don't think about that, and we just are reacting and speaking from our mountains. And so the biggest thing as a couple that you can do is ask the other person, where are you at? What do you dream of? How can I support you? I mean, simply asking the question and being willing to hear. We are not the stewards of other people's stories. It's not my job to write your story or explain to you how you think or feel. It's my job to hear you. And as your partner in life, I want to hear you and know you, not mold a statue. You're not my robot. So I think that's the biggest one. And so many things come from that, that you hear so often, that financial issues are a big issue of conflict, or parenting is a big issue of conflict. These things can be big dividers in our homes. Really, let's go back to that ultimate thing. What is your goal? Is it to love each other well? How do you do that? Sometimes it means taking some humble pie. Sometimes it means keeping your mouth shut and not saying that last thing. Sometimes it means stepping forward and being assertive and saying, hey, this is bothering me, and sharing it while it's small so it never becomes that big mountain in your household.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, if people want to get in touch with you, can you please mention the different ways people can do that and how you work with people also?
Yes. So as I've mentioned, we've got a podcast. So since you're listening to podcasts, there's another one to add, and it's Mama Says Namaste, and that's MAMA, Mama. So Mama Says Namaste podcast. And if you go to mamasaysnamaste.com, I'm just going to say, go to the home page. On that page, you have there's a pop-up for communication tips for you and your partner. And it helps to understand maybe some ways that you may encourage and motivate one another, and what might shut each other down and make each other turn into reaction mode. It works not just for your partner, but better understanding for your children as well. So there's a free download on the home page, and there's also a search bar right at the top. So you put in any kind of keyword that you have that may be an issue. Maybe it is around money, and we have a lot of podcasts around what is your purpose for money, not just how do you build it all up in your bank account as your relationships are hurting. So you can put in whatever keyword you're looking for, and we have a lot of blog posts and episodes to support you along the way. So there's that, and then all of those lead into coaching one-on-one with me, and I have had the pleasure of coming into organizations and coaching on hiring and teams. I have also had the pleasure of working with individuals and couples with their marriage relationships, and even had the opportunity to do some coaching with full families and working with the kids as well, which has been a lot of fun. So lots of variety, but the goal is relationships and how we all can thrive as we live this life together.
And it's pretty easy. Just go to Mama Says Namaste. So for now, it's time to say namaste. It was wonderful to see you, see your light. And I can't remember the rest of the whole thing that was in it. But thanks a lot for taking your time to be on our podcast.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun.